Brian Burns is a lifelong Chicagoan, born and raised in the 5th District. He's an attorney working at the intersection of law and technology. He previously worked at two federal agencies in Washington, D.C., the CFTC and the FEC. Brian wrote a local law increasing civilian policies in Memphis. Right now, Brian is here to tell us more about his run for Congress here in Illinois. Welcome, Brian. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
I know you've come a long way from, you said you started off at college, you went to law school in Memphis, huh?
Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee. So it was a great 3 years down there.
Oh, I can imagine. It's just the culture's different down there.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you been?
I've never been there, but I know a lot of people that have gone there, and they said they've really enjoyed the atmosphere down there.
Blues music is fantastic. The barbecue's even better, so nothing to not like.
Yeah, and nothing you can not like here is running for Congress. Now, what made you decide to get into to run for Congress here in Illinois?
Yeah, so I mean, I love my job. I love being an attorney in the business world. I've got a lot of hobbies. Love my dog. Takes a lot of time to run to Congress. The reason I'm doing it, it kind of breaks down to three things, right? So the first thing is there's major problems facing our society, right? The second thing is there's a ticking time clock, right? Climate change especially is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And then the third thing is there's not anybody addressing it with the urgency that I think that it needs to be addressed with. So, I was raised in a family where if you see a problem and if you're capable of fixing it, you roll up your sleeves and get to work. So that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing this.
Cool. So let's talk about some of the biggest problems you see facing us today.
Yeah, so I kind of like to break it down as far as there's a lot of things, wrong, right? I like to look at it as kind of like three major policy failures, all caused by kind of like one root cause. So the three major policy failures that we're looking at is, number one is climate change.
Climate change,
right? So we're continuing to burn more and more carbon fuels. We know that we're shooting ourselves in the foot. This is the only planet we have, and if we don't fix that, then kind of everything else is going to fall by the wayside.
So with the carbon and climate change, there's that real thin line between being a productive society and going back to the Stone Age, right? How do you handle that without being too extreme?
Yeah, so I don't think there's really a trade-off there, to be frank. There is the carbon-based economy that we all grew up with. We have better options now, right? We've got wind, we've got solar, we've got a lot of different ways to power our future, and then just like individuals making just like choices for themselves can go a long way in making reducing their carbon footprint and making it so that we have a sustainable future for everyone. I really think we owe a debt to the youngest generations to make sure that we leave them the planet better than we got it.
Now, with carbon footprint, how do we really judge each person's carbon footprint?
So there's a lot of things that go into it. Things like how do you get to work every day, right? If you're taking public transit, you're doing a great job. If you're driving a Hummer every day, you're not doing such a great job. How often you fly to travel, that is another big thing. Your diet is really important. So the less meat that you can eat, the better. I'm not proposing that everyone turns into a vegan overnight. A lot of people, that's a great choice for them for health reasons and otherwise. But even just reducing meat intake, cutting out meat 2 days a week can really go a long way.
See, that's the thing that I think people don't realize is they think it's either all or nothing. Eat nothing but plant-based food and no meat. But then not even like 1 day a week.
Right.
That would probably help out a lot. But see, that's the thing that people aren't really being told.
Yeah.
As far as us, people at home. I'm the average person.
Right.
I'm either being told you're messing up because you like technology, or or otherwise, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One little thing you could be doing could change your way of changing your footprint, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just cut out meat 1 day, cut out meat 2 days. Not only is it good for the environment, but most research agrees that it's good for your health. It's just a good thing to do for a lot of reasons.
And then what about solar power?
Yeah, so solar, there's been a lot of advances in the past decade, even in the past 5 years, bringing the cost per kilowatt hour down to where it's competitive with the older technologies. And if we make sure that we subsidize it in the right way, if we make sure that we're not subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, then the market can really take care of a lot of these problems if we just give it a chance to do what it's meant to do.
Now, also with solar power, if it's a cloudy day, everyone's like, well, then there's no power. But then you go to the other backup power, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, you can have backup power. There's a lot of battery technologies that are coming online. Tesla has a home battery that you can basically put up on the wall in your garage. store electricity there, and then you can even be selling electricity back to the utilities when the prices are higher and you're not using it all. So there's a lot of really innovative solutions. I'm not somebody who thinks that the government should be telling everybody what to do all the time. I think that the government plays a crucial role in setting the right incentives so that people can make the right choice on their own, which I think they will do most of the time.
And then what about wind?
Wind, I'm a huge proponent of wind. I think it's, it's a great idea.
And what about, like, they say some like birds seem to fly into the propellers. What do you say about that?
Right. So I mean, any technology that you use, there's going to be some kind of a downside, right? And so I think taking on balance, the few birds who end up running into on balance.
But
it's a lot
no
worse.
matter what you come up with, there's always going to be someone saying. And again, the people complaining about the birds may be the electric company themselves complaining that they.
I think the Republicans especially are really good at like giving these negative talking points about everything. I mean, Trump had the line about windmills causing cancer, right? And so if you listen to every word that comes out of everybody's mouth, you really have to think about where they're getting their information and whether or not they have any underlying motives, right?
And what I don't understand is why don't we just do a little bit? Mm-hmm. It's either all or nothing.
Yeah,
and that's the problem we run into, I think. Right?
Yeah. So I think that with regards to the environment, I think it does have to, and especially how we get our energy, I think there does have to be a kind of more urgent shift there, right? Because the scientists have told us that we've got 10 years to make a major turnaround. Or else the climate's going to reach a tipping point, right? If we get too much CO2 in the atmosphere, then you kind of start to hit these reinforcing cycles in the environment that make it really hard to come back from. So I do think we need to be very assertive in making a change so that the next generation, again, we owe them a clean planet. We owe them a sustainable planet.
Oh, definitely, and we owe it to ourselves too.
Yeah.
Who wants dirty air? Who wants dirty water? Who wants dirty with everything?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And those have an effect on the climate. They also have a big effect on your health. So that's the second kind of major policy failure that I'm seeing. That's a concern for me is our healthcare system isn't looking out for everyone. Every year, about 45,000 people die just because they can't pay for their health insurance.
Okay.
My fiance is a doctor, and the story she tells me about people not being able to afford their health care, it's heartbreaking. We live in the richest society in the history of the world, and that 45,000, that breaks down to about one person every 12 minutes dying just because they can't afford their health care. So I think we need to fix that so that people have the freedom to just be secure in their health.
And how do is there a way to fix it? Is there a simple way, or is it a complicated way? What's the best way?
So for me, it's Medicare for all.
Okay.
It's Bernie Sanders has a good plan for Medicare for all. Every other industrialized country has figured out a way to make sure that their citizens can have health care. We can figure it out. It's just a matter of having the political will to do it. So when we think about how our elections are run, the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance industry, the hospital lobby, all of these have a lot of impact on how our politicians are voting. And so I think that making sure that our politicians are working for us, make sure that they're framing the debate in a way that makes sense for us is crucially important. Americans have a very deep-seated distrust of government, right? Get your hands off my health care, that kind of a thing. But I think that if we frame it in a way that this is not a government takeover, all this is a government figuring out the most efficient way for us to pay for things. You can have your same doctor, you're going to have access to still the best hospitals and care in the entire world. You're just not going to get dinged with $6,000 out of nowhere for showing up at the hospital.
And what's the third big problem you mentioned?
Yeah, so the third biggest problem for me is this is unending wars that we're in.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm 33 years old. The vast majority of my life we've spent in wars that don't have a very clear purpose, and they don't have a very clear objective, and there's not any strategy for, even if there was an objective, how we get there, right? So we're losing a lot of American lives, but we're also losing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians in these countries that we're bombing. So I think we need to step back and take a look at why are we there, and then get out as quickly as possible, because we don't need to have unending wars all over the world in a global war on terror, as they're calling it.
Right, and the thing is, there's just too many mindsets on why we should be in a certain area, and no one knows exactly why we're there in the first place, right?
Right.
Everyone's got an excuse why we're there, but no one knows what was the main reason.
Yeah, and I think this kind of comes back to the military-industrial complex that Dwight Eisenhower warned us of 40, 50 years ago. If the people making the bombs have an influence over the politicians, it's easy to see how we end up in endless wars. And so, the three policy failures that I mentioned, the climate, healthcare, and unending wars, all really come down to what I think is kind of the root fundamental problem that we need to fix, and that's how are we making our decisions in the first place? Why is it that a very small number of people are funding our politicians and then influencing all of their policies? So if we don't address how we're making decisions, we're never going to be able to solve the bigger problems.
Okay, and before we go, can you tell us about Democracy 3.0?
Yeah, absolutely. So Democracy 3.0 is my initiative, my plan for how do we redefine government for the 21st century.
Okay.
So to start with the name, Democracy 1.0 we can think of as ancient Greece, where all the citizens got together on a hill. You and me would debate, we would vote on an issue, and we would decide what the government's going to do right then and there. Right?
Okay.
So direct citizens making decisions, that's 1.0. Fast forward to early America, there's about 2 million people in the country. At the time our framers were designing our Constitution, they designed a representative democracy, where you and I don't have actual power. What we do is we vote for people who then are above us, and then they set the rules for the rest of the country.
You hope they do it.
You hope they do it in a good way.
Right.
And in fairness, it's worked pretty well for the past 200 years. We've had steady progress on civil rights, on the economy, on people becoming more free and having a better quality of life. But what's happened in the past 10 to 20 years is the corporate class, the donor class, the lobbyists, the super PACs, the special interests have gotten so good at manipulating that system that they've essentially got it to just work only for them, right? And it's no longer working for the normal people, for the regular guy. And things have kind of ground to a halt, not only in Washington, D.C., but in Springfield and in state houses all around the country. The influence of money is just having too big of an effect. So unless we address that, we're not going to get anywhere. So my idea for Democracy 3.0 is that we kind of go back to a system where you and I are, again, making decisions for ourselves, where the citizens have the power. And the way that we can do that is by leveraging technology, right? So if the framers were around now and they saw that we have email and text messages and phone calls, they would not have designed the Constitution the way that they did.
Right.
And so my idea is that we aim for a future 50 years down the line where we are making decisions as a group collectively without even the need for politicians. And so we get there incrementally. The first step for me is it's on my website, brianburns.com, what I'm calling the Direct Democracy Pledge. And so I'm pledging to my constituents that if you elect me, I will do everything in my power to be in a dialogue with you constantly. You're not just going to vote for me and then 2 years later see if you want to vote for me again. No, the second I'm sworn in, I'll be in a dialogue with you. Hey, I've got this vote coming up. They're thinking about going to war. I don't think we should go to war, but ultimately, you put me here. You, the people, have the power. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it.
Cool.
So that's the idea, and I think that small baby step can go a long way in helping us make better decisions.
Great. All right, Brian Burns for running for Congress in the 5th District.
Yes,
All right,
District.
Brian. Okay, there you go. And Brian Burns, this is TVHams.com is the official website of the Gentleman Grachowski Show. Find out more about Brian. You can go right there at TVHams.com. All right, Brian, thanks.
Thanks a lot.